Ladies and gentlemen, I've got Sammy Jacobs of the Hoosier Huddle on here tonight. We are navigating into Big Ten territory tonight. I know, this is a mainly Southern show here, but I like to view this like Joe Rogan. We talk to everybody on here. We have Big Ten, Big 12, American Athletic, MAC, you name it. We have it on this show. All are welcome, and I'm excited to have Sammy on here because the Indiana Hoosiers have been one of the best stories of not only this year but the past several years. And so, Sammy, great to have you. And first question, I'll start off the bat. How does it feel to be number two?
I mean, it feels good. I mean, that's a terrible answer. But it's not as shocking as it was like last year when you were number five going to Ohio State, just because you're coming off a 3-9 season, and the Tom Allen era where you won 9 games in 3 years at the end there. But it is uncharted waters for IU. It's their highest ranking ever. You went on the road and beat Oregon, who was, I believe, number three at the time, in a game that, quite frankly, Indiana controlled most of the time, and dominated the second half. You put Illinois in a body bag at 63-10, and I've been covering this team for about 12 years now, and I went to IU, graduated in '09, so I've been following them basically for 20, 25 years now. I was always thought IU could be good at football. Did I think they'd be a perennial top five team? No, but there was no reason that you shouldn't have a season like last year or this year every so often. And there's no reason that you shouldn't go to the postseason every year. You play in the Big Ten, you have the money, you just have to invest it and care about the sport, and that's what they did. And they found Kirk Cignetti, and he's been a total revelation. He has won everywhere. And, we had him on our hot board early and all that stuff. And then there were rumors he was going to Syracuse. So we kind of put him down. But the question was always, how much is IU willing to pay to get its coach? And they're willing to pay a lot of money now to keep Kirk Cignetti and his staff in Bloomington.
And they just congratulations to him. He just got an extension a few weeks ago. I mean, I know that was all prompted by all that James Franklin talk that was going on, and or all that Penn State talk that was going on. It prompted many different programs to act this whole carousel, and Indiana was one of them. But he's deserving of every dollar that he's getting, and he's really transformed that program. I mean, Indiana's playing with a chip on shoulder that I haven't seen. It's complete intensity the way they play these games. It's maximum effort from first quarter to the final whistle. And I know that Indiana goes in on some of these teams. I mean, you saw it last weekend, 55-10 against Maryland's, right? 56-6 against UCLA. They just kept on scoring against Illinois, 63-10. They pour it on, and towards the game, we've gotten a lot with Alabama back in the Nick
It's their
Saban day.
backups, though.
Yeah.
It's the backups. And look, I know people got
Yeah.
confused on social media that Alberto Mendoza, Fernando's younger brother, was in against UCLA. Against Illinois, the leading rusher was the third string running back who ran for like 100 yards in the third and fourth quarter. That's not on. I mean, people could get upset, and I get it. As an Alabama guy, yeah, you guys smash people, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you got accused of running it up. And then you go back to the old Florida days in the 90s where, hey, man, we're going to score 100 because that's what the computer's like. But, yeah, it's no matter who's on the field, and IU pulls their starters earlier. Like, you could say what you want about, we're letting Fernando Mendoza get stats. He played a half against Indiana State and a half against Illinois, basically, and threw for 10 touchdowns. And he was like some absurd number of like 40 of 43 passing for 540 yards. Sorry, at some point, people have to play defense.
Yeah, I mean, and when you're running up 73 and 63 on people, like that's absurd. That's a total mismatch. Like, and it shows that Indiana Indiana's layered at this point. Like it's not just because you had those fly by night teams every year, like oh wow, like they were really good in 2024, but then what happened? And all those times those teams don't have depth. Indiana is recruiting at a very high level, spending at a very high level, retaining at a very high level, and the results are, if you've been following it closely, exactly as you should expect.
Yeah, and they're developing. And I think that's, one of the undersold reasons why IU is so good is because they brought all these JMU guys that Kirk Cignetti and his staff had a couple years with. Elijah Surratt, who's an all Big Ten, all American player, was a 0-star recruit coming out of high school, went to St. Francis, did not start the first 5 games at St. Francis, was a freshman FCS All American, went to JMU, became all Sun Belt, and then came to IU, and is, maybe the second best receiver in the Big Ten behind Jeremiah Smith. It's unbelievable that they develop guys. Tyreek Tucker comes from JMU. The guy's built like a fire hydrant, making plays. Aiden Fisher, another 2-star recruit or whatever. He is taking guys who have that mindset, have that buy-in, and kind of have the physical tools but aren't developed yet, and develops them. I mean, Fernando Mendoza was good at Cal, but he wasn't this good at Cal.
No.
And Kirk Cignetti, you could go back to his days at Alabama as a recruiting coordinator and working with the quarterbacks there, with his time at NC State with Phillip Rivers and Russell Wilson. The guy can coach quarterbacks. He had the player of the year in the Sun Belt at JMU 4 years in a row, and it was different guys each year.
So it's just development. And you saw that level of consistency with JMU when he was there. I mean, I remember I started this channel, the era back in 2023, like spring of 2023, and that was a season that JMU was like 8-0 at one point, and there was all the talks about, because they were in the beginning age of their eligibility. There's all these talks. They should be made bowl eligible because they were still. The term's not coming to me. It's an A word. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on their. Oh, they're still in arbitration.
They were transitioning up from FCS, which I think is an underrated quality that Kirk Cignetti saw too. JMU was a good FCS team before he got there, and then transitioning that team. Yeah, they were not bowl eligible. I think they ended up being like 10-0 and hosting game day that one time.
Yeah.
And I mean, they ultimately lost to App State, and it didn't really matter. And they went to the Armed Forces Bowl because there was not enough bowl eligible teams. But yeah, that was nuts. If they went 12-0 and were the best Group of 5 team, to not be eligible for the playoff would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, I would have at least wanted to see them in. And now there was a whole other debate that year too with Alabama and Florida State, and then if you throw JMU in that mix too, I mean, it's just gonna get sloppy.
Yep.
But yeah, the way that Cignetti has been able to develop, and you saw what it did at JMU, it's translated over seamlessly to Indiana, and I don't think that this team is going anywhere anytime soon. And so, coming off of the Maryland victory, this Saturday you have Penn State. This was supposed to be, a landmark game, probably about a month ago, and now it's something that a lot of people probably won't even watch on Saturday. But it's still a game. If you're Indiana, you're coming down the home stretch here. You got to stay locked in, continue to play your brand of football. Then you got Wisconsin at home, and then your main rival Purdue on the road. So how do you see Indiana faring with these final 3 games?
Yeah, Penn State at the beginning of the season, you thought there were 3 ranked games. One was at home at Illinois. You had the game at Oregon. You could throw in Iowa there as well, at Iowa, in that 3-game stretch in the middle of the season there. And then at Penn State, and kind of all the preseason discussion was, man, that Penn State game, that could come down to, maybe an elimination game for the playoff or an elimination game for the Big Ten title game. Penn State did not live up to their side of the bargain. The bottom fell out after they lost to Oregon and went out and lost to a winless UCLA team. But they're still talented. They still have Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton in the backfield. Ethan Grunkemeyer is in for an injured Drew Aller, but they just haven't played up to their level of talent. But it is still a scary game. It's a place where Indiana has never won. They've never won at Penn State. They've been close a couple of times. But going into the season was Penn State plays us after Ohio State. James Franklin teams after playing Ohio State or one of these big games always have a letdown. You saw it with UCLA, ended up costing him his job. And the thinking was maybe this is the year IU goes into Penn State and kind of shocks them and upsets them because they're coming off that Ohio State game where you figured they were going to lose because they just don't beat Ohio State. But yeah, Wisconsin is over in the Big Ten. Alabama crushed them at home earlier in the season. They're on whatever string quarterback they are. It was a debate whether or not Luke Fickell would still be there at this time, but he will. He'll be there next year for however many games they want him to be there. And then, you have a bye week, which I think with being a playoff team, that late bye week in the second to last week of the season is kind of a blessing in disguise. Indiana's been banged up. They've missed Aiden Fisher last week. Elijah Surratt is dealing with a hamstring injury. And you just have a lot of guys who are dinged up. To get a week where you could physically rest and recover before playing Purdue, and then hopefully the Big Ten title game, and then you have another 3 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on what seed you get in the playoff to rest and recover. So they should beat Wisconsin at home. Indiana's undefeated at home under Kirk Cignetti. That's a zombie Wisconsin team. Purdue up there, it's a Friday night game, which is kind of weird for the Bucket game. We've seen teams who are ranked in the top 5 go to Ross Dade and get beat, but this is not a good Purdue team. Their starting running back just was lost for the year after ankle surgery. But anything could, just like Auburn and Alabama, anything could happen in a rivalry game. You could be either side could be great and bad, and all of a sudden the hate, in-state hate comes through, and you're in a dogfight before you know it. So should Indiana win on Saturday, odds are you go 12-0 and face Ohio State in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title, which if you told me this 2 years ago, I would have called you nuts.
That's to me a lot of red in the Lucas Oil Stadium.
It is. It's a lot of red in Lucas Oil Stadium.
A lot of red between those two, and I think that those two have clearly differentiated themselves as the best in the Big Ten. I don't really picture a scenario where that's not your game. Kind of like looking at the SEC now too, and Alabama and A&M kind of feels like it's going to be it, and Indiana, Ohio State just kind of feels like this is going to be the game in Indianapolis. And the fact is, this is a drive down the street for you.
It is a 30-minute drive. Literally, I'll turn right out of my driveway, another right, a left, a right, and bam, right down the street to Lucas Oil. But Ohio State does have to beat Michigan. Now, it's not a great Michigan team, but neither was last year. Nobody saw them losing to Michigan last year, and they did. That if Ohio State loses that game, it kind of makes everything cloudy in the Big Ten. You have a whole bunch of one-loss conference teams there with Iowa, Oregon, Washington, Michigan. USC is in there as well.
Yeah.
Now it'll all take care of itself. Oregon plays Washington, USC. They play Iowa this week and stuff like this. But yeah, if you simulated it 1,000 times, it's probably Indiana, Ohio State. I'd say 90% of them.
Yeah, right now the Big Ten is in theory it's wide open. I think that there was a big gap between Ohio State and Indiana just from what I've watched out of them this year. But those USCs and those Iowas, like they do just kind of linger around there. But I feel like natural selection will wear them out, and then that Indiana win in Eugene proves to be massive, as that's likely going to be the difference maker.
Yeah, that's the tie. I mean, if Indiana goes undefeated, they're automatically in. But yeah, if you happen to drop a game, that's the tiebreaker is the win over Oregon. Granted that Oregon is takes care of their business too.
I think they can still get in. I mean, being at number 9 was interesting this week, but I think that they'll still work their if they take care of business these next couple of weeks.
They have plenty of opportunities. They're at Iowa this week, who's at 20. Washington was ranked. USC, I believe, is ranked too. Those are their 3 final games. So if you go 3-0 in those games, there's no reason. I mean, they could be in play for a bye, depending on what happens with the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how that all shook out last year with the seeding. They could very well get into an advantageous position where they get an extra week of rest. And so, speaking of the CFP and the scenarios that we've discussed, how far do you think what do you think that the ceiling is? What do you think the floor is for Indiana if they get into the CFP?
I mean, the floor is obviously you lose in the first round or the first game you play in. Probably the quarterfinal. I would say the quarterfinal, because if you're the 5 seed, which I think is the floor of Indiana getting in, unless you lose 2 games, but I don't see that happening. They're not gonna punish you for losing the Big Ten title game.
Yeah,
they're not. It is too big of a moneymaker for these conferences, and if somebody, let's say, either Ohio State or Indiana are, let's say they both go 12-0 and somebody's 12-1 coming out of that game, and you get bumped down too far, what's the point of playing that game? Like you're better off just going undefeated and saying, hey, I don't want to play this game. So yeah, the ceiling, Indiana has a legit shot at the title. That's the ceiling.
I think they do. I absolutely think they do.
They do. And the 2 seed, the way it worked this week, the 2 seed, you'd get the winner of, was it BYU Notre Dame? And you get them, I think, in the Cotton Bowl. So nobody has a home field advantage there. I don't think Notre Dame is as good as last year. I think Indiana is also better than last year. And then you'd potentially play the winner of Ole Miss, whoever wins Ole Miss, Virginia, or whoever wins the ACC, and then the winner of Texas A&M versus that game. I like my chances. It's a not an automatic loss. So, and then who knows? Go take your shot against somebody. You're playing 1 game for all the marbles. It's not a 12-game season you have to go through again. You're playing 1 game.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. It's and I think that Arizona State Texas game really spoke to me last year. Of everybody goes into that game thinking, oh, Texas is going to mop the floor with them, and for a while that's what it looked like was going to happen. But then Arizona State claws back, takes them to overtime, and it just
Arizona State should have won that game.
And the Arizona State I think they should have won that game with the momentum that they had and some of the calls. I think that they should have won that game. I'm with you. But it just goes to show you that it is heat of the moments, and we can theorize on all these matchups right now, but
it's all meaningless. You got 4. Yeah, you got 4 weeks left of football. Anything could happen. And I'm in a love-hate relationship with the playoff anyway. You look, Ohio State lost 2 games last year. It could have been argued that they shouldn't have been in, but they had so much talent on that team, and they blew everybody out on their way to a national title. So that's the part of it I hate, is it kind of takes away the regular season. But man, the games when you're in, and yeah, some of the first round games were blowouts or whatever. But if you're talented and you have a good coach, anybody could run the table.
And that's just what scares you about some of these teams getting in is like a, you look at a Georgia, right? I mean, you think about it in theory, like if they go on a run here, beat Texas convincingly, beat Georgia Tech convincingly, they'll miss the SEC championship, but they'll get a bye. They'll probably get that little 5 seed there, where they'll be playing Memphis or Tulane or somebody. They'll destroy them, get confidence, and then you have to really start in a talented roster. That's kind of how it played out for Ohio State last year. Now, Ohio State had a decent opponent in Tennessee. I don't think they're ready to go up to that environment. I don't think they're ready for what they're stepping into with Ohio State. But the more and more games momentum that they played, the more momentum they got. And so, it's a well-coached team with a great roster. And it's those Georgias, it's those Oregons that you have to worry about sneaking in there, the 5 and 6s that can go on those runs. It's scary.
Yep. Yeah, it's like newfound life. It's kind of like the NCAA tournament, except for me, it's the opposite, where you could get that 11 seed with the guy who's never shot a 3-pointer in his life, goes like 9 for 10 from downtown, and all of a sudden you're like, our season's over. What happened?
Yeah, and I see what you're saying. Like it kind of does minimize the regular season, and I've always been a regular season guy for college football. Like it's
the best regular season in sports. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
There's nothing.
And yeah, and I hate that the SEC and the Big Ten are at war with each other, because I just truly enjoy the sport. I'll go watch. Well, now I have YouTube TV, so I can't watch anything. It's always fun to watch these action games. I mean, heck, Kent State what is it, Toledo and Bowling Green. Toledo is a rocket that is navigationally pointed to land at the 50-yard line of Bowling Green Stadium. Like, what other sport does that? Nothing.
No, it's so completely unique, and we're sitting here playing, Tuesday, Wednesday night basketball game or football games, and it's just it's awesome. I don't know if you saw the video of the kid getting dunked in the water tank on the side of the field. I think that was a Bowling Green game last week. Just unreal stuff.
Yep, it's action.
Look, I live for action. I live for Ball State, Central Michigan. I'm a Bowling Green fan because my initials are BG.
Yep.
And I've always liked their colors, and so I've always gravitated towards Bowling Green for that reason. But yeah, I'm with you. I just love the sport of college football. I feel like there's a lot of bullshit right now that just surrounds the sport. Like you said, the SEC Big Ten war, which I get is a thing. I try just not to take it too seriously, because at the end of the day, it's football and it's fun. And then obviously the TV stuff right now too. Like there's just a lot of bullshit that swirls around it that I try to put to the side and enjoy the sport itself.
Yeah, it's the best sport out there, with the best regular season. So my fingers are crossed that they don't ruin it or kill the golden goose. But
I'm with you on that. Keep the goose alive. And now, one last question I wanted to ask you here. So, talking about SEC and Big Ten, both sides like to throw around a lot of hypotheticals at this time of year. Oddly enough, like October, November, when you get that first playoff picture, it sparks the conversation. How would this team fare against this team? This team would beat the shit out of this team. This team would destroy this team. We've got I'm an Alabama guy. You're an Indiana guy. That's the national championship. How do you think it plays out?
Ooh, neutral site.
Yeah.
See, this is a game where it's like, okay, come up north and play in the cold, and Indiana will win. Or go down and play in the heat, and Alabama probably wins. Neutral site. Where is it? Florida this year. Wow, Hoosier fans in Florida. That stadium would actually be filled for once. Be a great game. You're talking about two of the guys who should be Heisman finalists, and Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza. I haven't watched a ton of Alabama. But you guys have Caden Proctor running at fullback, and he's what, like 8,000 pounds, 7 feet. He's a giant. Um, it'd be, I think it'd be one of those heavyweight fights that whoever's better on special teams and gets a play on either a punt return, a long field goal, or something like that, where the offenses duke it out, the defenses all, make a big play here and there on both sides. But yeah, I'll be a homer. I'd take Indiana. It'd probably be, I'd take the over. Whatever the over is in that game, take it. And I'll go Indiana 41, Alabama 40 on a late Nico Radicic field goal.
Oh, I can honestly see it being a very high scoring game because I think that our receiving core against anybody for the first time it's a shock playing that. And you've got probably the most accurate quarterback in college football and Ty Simpson. I mean he's pinpoint with his passes. His accuracy is unreal. He's efficient. Alabama's struggle has been running the ball, and so I think that Indiana's pass rush, which isn't talked about enough, I think could and run defense could slow that down.
Giving up only 60 yards on the ground per game in Big Ten play. That's not giving it up to whatever FCS teams. They're, ODU gashed them with soon-to-be transfer quarterback. I forgot his name already. But man, I like him. And then after that, Indiana hasn't given up anything on the ground. 60 yards of rushing offense against them in Big Ten play is head-scratchingly good.
Yeah, it's unreal. So that would be a massive advantage in Indiana's corner. But like you, I'll be a homer here. I've seen Alabama overcome adversity and massive challenges so many times this year that I think that Indiana is just another challenge, is just another barrier like we've had with Vanderbilt, like we've had with Georgia, we've had with Missouri and Tennessee, and I think that Alabama takes care of business again. But if you were to wake me up the next day and tell me that Indiana won, last year I'd be surprised. This year, well, maybe not last. We fell apart last year. But, this year, I would, if you told me Indiana won that game, my jaw wouldn't be dropped.
Yeah, it's look. You have former Indiana offense coordinator Kalen DeBoer, who I'm a huge fan of. I think he's a really, really good coach. I don't know if he's the best fit at Alabama culturally, but he's a really, really good coach. Kane Womack is there. Like all guys I've talked to and had relationships with professionally. And then you have the Alabama side of it, and David Ballou too is an Indiana guy. And then you have Cignetti, who's the former Saban recruiting coordinator who bet on himself to go to Indiana University, Pennsylvania, instead of just banking SEC checks at Alabama at the age of 50. Said, "Hey, I want to be a head coach. I think I'm going to be pretty good. Let's do this." So the storylines in that game would be phenomenal.
I kind of hope that I hope that it's the Natty is either Alabama, Indiana, or Alabama, Ohio State, because there's a lot of storylines there too. It's the Caleb Downs revenge game, right? Julian saying like there's some layers to that, and Alabama and Ohio State. We've always had it was two sides of the coin. There's always that kind of animosity, like North versus South, SEC versus Big Ten. There were two real blue bloods of the game, I would say. I think they're the two best programs in college football going up against each other. And then just sheer respect for each other. I mean, as an Alabama fan, I have nothing but respect for Ohio State because I view them as the gold standard of the North. And so every time we play them, it's just respect. But with what Indiana's done at this point, I have the same regard too. It takes a very special team to go up into Eugene, Oregon, and to silence that place. And so that's what I embraced Indiana after last year. I put my arms around Indiana and was like, this is a great story. I love this is doing for college football, like for a basketball school turned football school. Like I like this. And then when they beat Oregon, it was that shift from cool story to wait, put some respect on their name. Like this team is programmed, this staff is legit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, being closer to the program than most people, you you saw it in spring practice. It is so efficiently run. There's no music. Practices last about 90 minutes, which is unheard of. Like Signetti came in and said, "We don't use all our spring practices. We don't use all our fall practices." And you're like, "This guy's nuts." Like, what college coach says that? They're all like, I mean, I wish I had 8,000 practices and 90 hours in the day to do it. But he is one of a kind, and you just saw the shift happen quickly. And last year, um, you know, yeah, I saved the Athlons and Lindy's from last year, where they said Indiana's not going to go to a bowl game because their schedule is too difficult in 2024. Then all I heard for 2024 was, who did they play? So rewatching games last year, Nebraska came in at 5-1. The game they played before was Rutgers. Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt talking about, wow, 5-1 Nebraska, they could be a playoff team, and they're a dark horse for a national title. Indiana beats them 56-7, and everybody's like, well, Nebraska stinks. And then Nebraska went into Ohio State, probably should have won that game and stuff like this. But yeah, you're right. That Oregon game, I think, got even the hardest of gut punched Hoosier fans to go, wow, we got something real special.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't like to play into that, because you can play devil's advocate and be hypocritical so much with the whole who they play, this and that. Like it's just I don't know. There's different perceptions of different teams at different times of the year. So you play who you played in the moment. Like, and I think the perfect game to illustrate that at this point is Oregon Penn State back in September, because I have a feeling that the committee looked at that game the other night and was like, oh, well, how special is that? Penn State lost to UCLA, they lost to Northwestern. Like, who cares that Oregon went up there and beat them? Well, at that time, that was number 3 in the country. At that time, that was a national championship contender. And at that time, that's what the perception was of that team. That's what they were playing as. And so you beat a Penn State team who was laying it on the line, and Oregon broke them. That's the way I look at it. But you have to give it all that context. And I think that some people just look at it and say, oh, well, Penn State is 3-5, and they've lost to Northwestern and UCLA.
Which is why the comments coming out of the committee this year that they have coaches and that they're watching film and watching the tape makes me feel a little bit better. And it's not just data points. Now you need to use both of them to make sense.
Yeah.
But not all are using FPI or S&P Plus or whatever strength of schedule metric that ESPN comes up with. So that's good. But yeah, excited for this week. Chance to go 10-0. A little history on the line too. IU has never won at Beaver Stadium. They've only beaten Penn State twice. So it is, despite it not being the top 10 or 15 matchup that people thought at the start of the regular season, there's still a lot on the line for IU.
Absolutely, a lot of history to be made this weekend, and just there's something special about when you have double digits in the win column. It feels damn good, and just to be able to get to that point, another step closer to Indianapolis, I'm sure we'll feel great.
Yeah, it's another step closer to Indianapolis, and another step closer to that bye week to get healthy. And football season is now no longer let's play 13 games. It's let's play 16, 17 games at most.
It is truly a marathon. It's not a sprint anymore. It's a marathon, and those bye weeks. It's kind of like stopping at the Shell station when you're driving from here to Nashville. Like, you just gotta pump that gas and
keep going. Watch whatever games are on and keep rolling.
Yeah, like Limp Bizkit says, just keep on rolling, baby. But yeah, it's those bye weeks are so crucial now. Then the time it feels like the NFL. Like, you look at the timing of the bye week. I feel like we looked at that a lot in college football in the past, and now it's like strategically, oh, when is this bye week?
Yeah,
how's that going to factor in the playoff run? And so it's really just changed everything. But it's been great having you on here, Sammy. You're my first ever Indiana guest, and so you'll always have that badge.
All right, hang the banner, baby.
Hang the
But
banner.
thanks for having me on, Brian. Always love talking college football, and I'm glad an SEC podcast came up north to take on the Big Ten. So that's always appreciated. I hope your teams in the future come up north and challenge themselves, but we'll see. But thanks. Enjoy the rest of the college football season, and hopefully both teams make a deep run into the playoff.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope to see you on the national championship. And as an SEC fan, as a fan of an SEC team, I want the smoke. I want nothing more but to go. I want to play in Ohio Stadium in December, or I want to go up to Bloomington in November at some point. Like, let's.
Everybody says that until it's 5 degrees and raining sideways. Then
Hey,
nobody wants to come up here.
I know. From growing up in the Northeast, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can sit here in my posh Fort Worth home here and be like, oh yeah, it's 73 degrees. Like, yeah, I'll come up there. Walk off the plane. I'm like, oh man, I fucked up.
Yep. Like that scene in Cool Runnings when they step off the plane in Canada.
That is now me when I go back to New York.
Yep.
Well,
but all right, thanks, Brian.
Here, Sammy. Yes, I appreciate you coming on. Hoosier Huddle. Go follow it on Instagram. Great account.
All right, thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
Yep, thanks.